Ahoy there, YouTube! I'm back again today for another game review, and today I'm very excited to check out City of the Big Shoulders from Parallel. This is for 2 to 4 players. It's going to take about 2.5 hours to play, and it's for ages 14 plus. And in City of the Big Shoulders, this is an 18XX/Euro style game in which you're in 1800 Chicago, and you're going to be starting up businesses and trying to make the most money by playing the stock market, manipulating the stock market, selling goods, action selection, doing a whole variety of different things in this absolutely meaty, chunky 2.5 hours. But let's be honest, your first couple games are going to be closer to 3 to 4 hour game. Now, before we get into this game, whether or not I like this game, I want to give a big shout out to our sponsor for this particular episode, Julie from Greenbrier Games. So check out Greenbrier Games. I'll post that link down below. But right now, let's check out City of the Big Shoulders. Fair warning, the middle part is longer than I like it to be because there is so much going on in this game. Alrighty then, we're going to take a look at what's inside of City of the Big Shoulders. So first and foremost, we have a handy dandy rule booklet, 40 pages, double-sided, full color, full of pictures, illustrations, examples, but it's very well done, and it should have you up and running about as smoothly as a 40-page rule booklet can have you up and running. It is going to take you quite a long time the first time you play this unless somebody knows how to play, but I will say they got a nice table of contents, a clear overview of what all the different components are, and they lead off with a setup, which I really like when companies do that, and then it goes over all the different components and then all the different phases and what you can do on all the different phases. So, in City of the Big Shoulder, and before we get started, I do want to mention that I'm not going to be going over every nook and cranny of this game, because this is a massive game. This is a 10-foot gaming table, and this is taking up over half of the table right now. That's how big this bad boy is, both idea-wise and also game space-wise. You're going to know you need a lot of game space. But I'm going to be going over the main phases in the game, which is, of course, the stock phase, the building phase, the action phase, the operating phase, and then I'm not going to really talk much about the cleanup phase. But when you first start the game, you're going to start a company. And I do want to mention that this game, this is a 4-player game that has just wrapped up that you see here. I think it's going to be a little bit easier to explain it with everything set up. But here was my company actually right here. And this is going to be your company board. And when you first start the game, everyone is going to pick a company. So I picked Brunswick Bulk Colander Co. And it's going to start with 1 prestige, which is how many stars you have. And this is very important because the prestigious companies are going to get to buy resources first, which is going to be really helpful. I'm not going to go too much into that until we get into that phase. But you're going to start your own company, and each company is going to be different. They're going to have different prestiges. They're going to have different slots. So, for instance, this one, I can buy an asset, which is like a persistent special ability I'll get to do once a turn that only I get to do, which is they're very, very useful. But they are going to cost you a good chunk of change. Also, they're going to require different amounts of workers. So, for instance, this one right here, and this guy actually ended up winning the game, he only needs 2 workers grand total in order to run both of his factories. But he still has to have the resources. Now, me, I had to have 4 workers and a lot more resources, but the amount of money that I was gaining from my goods, he was only gaining 40 bucks. I was gaining 80 bucks a pop. You know, that's a good chunk of change. There's also some other information on this game. So there's automation in this game, and you can unlock getting more goods. I'm not going to go into too much of that. So everybody's going to get your own. And at the beginning of the game, you get to pick whichever business you want, and they're all kind of different. They're all going for different goods as well. So some people are going to be making shoes, some people are going to be making pigs, or sewing machines, or wheat products. So, you're going to pick your stuff, and then, this is really the heart of the game, you're going to get 100% of the stock. So I'm just going to grab one of the stock things. So let's pretend that this was Brunswick's Bulks Colander Co. So I would start off as a 30% majority owner, which is going to go into my personal treasury right here. And this is incredibly important. You want to keep all your money separate. So my personal money is separate from this company's personal money, is separate from this company's personal money, because you can start more than one business. And I think most people probably will start more than one business in this game. So you're going to start off with 30% of your company. Then the other 70% are going to be owned, of course, by the company. But in order to start the company, you're going to have to pay money. So you're going to pay money in order to start the company at the beginning of the game. So that money is going to go to the company itself, because obviously that just makes sense. So you put your money down here, they'd start with 70% stock. Everyone is going to do this, and now you're ready to start the game. So everyone's going to have a company, everyone's going to have money in their company, everyone's going to have stock that will be able to be purchased in your company, and then you're going to have your own personal spot right here. So hopefully that wasn't clear as mud, but let's get into the actual game phase. So the first phase is going to be the stock phase, and this is where you're going to be able to sell shares of your stock in order to make money. So if I sold shares of my stock, I would sell, maybe 10% of my stock, and then I would get whatever the share value is of my stock. And the share values are going to fluctuate. They're going to go over here. So you're going to start down here in the 35, the 40, or the 50. So you can start at which one you want. But then as you make savvy business decisions and as you pay money out to your investors, which will be you and also other players at the table, your stock prices are going to climb. Whereas if you don't produce goods and if you don't sell goods, then obviously your stock prices are going to decline. So it is, at its core, a stock market game, obviously, because it's an 18xx style game. So you can sell some of your stocks, but be wary, that means that the stocks will then go to the bank, which means other people can buy them from the bank and they don't have to pay you for said stock. It doesn't happen terribly often, but it can happen. Next, you're going to be able to purchase a stock, and you can purchase your own company's stock, or you can purchase other people's stock, and you can do that by obviously looking over here at the stock tracker and then buying some of their stock if you have enough money and if they have stock left, because everybody's going to be buying everybody else's stocks. Now, it's a good time to talk about the different kinds of stocks. Everybody starts with a 30% stock. They're going to have 30% of their own company. You can also be a preferred member of someone's company and have the 20% stock, but obviously you have to pay 20% 22 times whatever their stock price is in order to get this. But these are really great to get early on. And then there's a whole bunch of 10s that you can buy. So there's 130, 120, and then 5 10s that you'll be able to purchase. And how this phase works is you can do one action, then the next person can do one action, the next person can do one action, and then this guy might pass, then I might do one more action, and this guy might pass, and then this one can get back in. So you are not done if you pass, unless, of course, everyone passes, in which case you move on to the next point. This is also the phase, the stock phase, where you could purchase an additional company if you would want after the first round, but you have to spend more of your own money. And this is really where the game gets interesting, because you have a finite amount of workers in this game. When you start a new company, you do not gain more workers. You do not gain more people to place out on the boards, or partners as they're called. You have to split your partners between those companies and try and do your best to do that. It's a very interesting juggling act. Next, we get to what's called the building phase. So once everyone's passed on the stock phase, we get to what's called the building phase. And this is one of the most interesting aspects of the game, but let's be honest, most of the aspects of this game are interesting, as I'll tell you in the pros. But this is where you are going to get 3 building tiles. And you're actually going to be creating the action selection spots on the board. So as you can see, there's these partners all over the board, but we put all the spots on there. And which spots you put out there is a really just absolutely fascinating experience, because if someone goes to your spot, then you get the money for that. So you want to put out a spot that's going to get you a lot of money, but at the same time, you might want to put out something that you're going to want to also use, because here's the thing: if you use that spot, your company pays you because you're the independent contractor who's providing another good or giving you cubes or doing this or doing something else. So you're going to have 3 of these. And there would be big stacks over here. You're going to have 3 of these tiles, and you're going to pick one. You're going to place it down secretly. You're going to discard one completely from the game, and then you're going to hold on to one of them for the next decade. You play over the course of 5 decades. So everyone's going to build, and then you all build, boom, at the same time. And then we get to what is called the action phase. And the action phase is where you are going to place out your workers to take actions. And I would say it's the heart of the game, but there's so many hearts in this game. This is like a cow. There's like 3 hearts here, but they got stomachs. I don't know. There's a lot going on in the game. And how this is going to work is I'm going to go over some of the various different action selection spots and what you're also trying to do, because the primary goal from the action phase is to get your company up and running so it's going to produce goods. So let's just start from the left and work our way over. So the first thing you can do is you can purchase workers. You go to the spot, an infinite number of people can go here, and then you can purchase workers for a specific company. You can't hire for both your companies, unfortunately. So they start down here at the bottom, so that's $40, but then they progressively get more expensive. Now this will get filled up whenever you lay down the tiles, because as you can see on these little tiles, it's also going to tell you how many workers are going to come out between the number of players that you have. So you buy the workers, and then boom, you might be able to put them there. So let's just say I want to go crazy, and I'm going to spend, what would that be, $100 from Brunswick Bulk. So I'd have to spend $100 from them, because they bought the workers. And now, though, my company is going to be able to run every single turn as long as I can get the resources. So now I'm not even worried about getting workers anymore. All I have to do is get resources. So next we have this spot right here, which is going to go up 1 on the prestige track. And as you can see on this prestige track over here, as you hit certain marks, you're going to be able to unlock different things. So you might unlock a worker, you might unlock what's called a salesperson, which we'll talk about in a second. You might get some automation, which we'll also talk about in a second. You might be able to unlock another one of your people, which is really valuable because you're only going to have 5 of these grand total and you have to unlock them. One you'll get at the beginning of the 3rd round, but one you can get from doing this, going over here, and another one you're going to be able to get from going right here. And completely running both your factories, because this is your company, but your company has 2 separate factories and you're trying to run both of them. So next, this one's going to let you go up on the prestige, but it's also going to let you go up on the turn order track, which is all the way over there. And this actually changes mid-round, which is really kind of cool. So for instance, if green were to go there and get bumped all the way to the front, green would be taking 2 turns in a row, which I thought was really cool as well. So next, we have this spot right here, which is going to allow you to purchase what is called a manager. And the managers are really stinking useful, and they're different from each company as well, because as I said, each of the companies is slightly different. So these are the manager spots right here. But the manager, if your factory runs and it's got the goods, is going to provide you with a resource. So for instance, this factory, and you run your factories from left to right. So let's say that you have brown, brown, blue, brown, brown, but you don't happen to have the brown and the black. If you can run this factory and you have all the workers to do it, you're going to gain a good. You might gain 2 goods if you've automated away that job, which I'll talk about in a second. But then your manager is going to save 2 of those goods, cubes, which you'll then be able to use over here, which means you'll be able to run this factory. And if you can run this factory successfully, then you'll unlock your partner, which is obviously pretty spectacular. This guy right here is going to be able to he's got a really cheap company, it's really easy to run, and he's going to be very prestigious. So if you got this company first and you really get it churning by itself, you're probably going to be able to be the highest prestige in the entire game, which is really good because it can help you win these tiles and a variety of other things, which I'm not even going to go into because there's so much stuff in this game. Next, we have salesmen. Salesmen are really simple. When you place a salesman onto the spot, the price of your goods are going to go up. So now from $80 to $90. Very simple concept there, but these guys can be super valuable. Next, we have this. These are called capital assets. As I mentioned, some of the companies are going to have spots where they will be able to put your an action here that only you will be able to take once per decade. So for instance, this is really simple. This one's going to get you $60. You flip it over, you get $60. It's great. $60 for your company. This one's going to be able to move up your stock prices. This one's going to allow you to get a brown and a black cube from up in the market up here. Now the other interesting thing is on the bottom right hand corner, they're also going to have immediate perks you'll be able to use. So this one's going to make this company go up by 2. This one's going to gain you a worker. This one's going to some of them will give you automation. They'll do different things as well. And even though you might not actually be able to use this, let's say that Cracker Jack, they can't use the brown and the black cube. They might just want to do it to get the 2 stars right there, which just another really interesting choice in the game. So that's capital assets. And then we've got these over here, which are just a whole boatload of different choices to make. And as the game progresses, you're going to get more and more different choices. So let's talk about this one right here, because this is a very important one. This is automation. And I'm going to set it up so you can see exactly how automation works real quick. So, we talked about workers and how you needed workers. Well, much as in real life, #gang game, you can automate away workers. So, for instance, if I were to go to this spot and I put my guy there and I pay the $40 to Yellow, who happened to put this one out, I'm going to be able to take this. I'll pay $40 from the Cracker Jack company, and then I'll be able to take this and I'll put it right here, and I never have to have a worker for that spot ever, which means now this company is pretty much running itself as long as I can get that brown resource. But it also unlocks the potential. Now I'm more efficient, so I'm going to be making 3 goods instead of 2 goods when that factory produces. And you can see you can eventually automate away all your workers if you really wanted to. But here's the thing, you don't get a discount for your workers. So if you spent that $100 on workers, that $100 is just gone, but you're going to have a much smoother thing. Also, one of these, I do believe, is the most automated away jobs. I don't have that particularly out now. These, I'll just talk about them real quickly, are going to be $200 that you can earn at the end of the game if you have the most partners, the most 10% thing, and the most 20% thing, and there's 10 different ones. You shuffle them up, and you're going to get 5 each game, so it will be slightly different each time. Any more of these that I particularly really need to talk about? I don't think so. These will allow you to get goods. These will allow you to get, these will allow you to get resources. These will allow you to get goods. The big ones are over here. This is going to let you take a loan out from the bank from your company. This one's a really interesting one. That one is going to allow you to take $100 from your company and then give it out to your shareholders. So it's a way to funnel money from your company to you, but also to your opponents potentially. It's really good early game. Not as good later in the game, but we're not going to talk about that because there's just too much to talk about. So that is the action selection phase. Let's keep on churning because, man, there's so much going on in this game. So that's the action phase. Next, we have the operating phase. This is where you're going to run your companies from left to right. So let's pretend that I had that worker out here, and I need to get myself some cubes. So I can get myself some cubes from that market way up there, but they're going to cost $10, $20, and $30. So I need brown, brown, blue. So if I had the money, I would spend $10, $50, and that would run this side of my thing. So the company would pay $50 to the bank, and then the next person would get the turn in a second. But let's not get there. So now I would churn it out, and I would produce, in this particular instance, let's pretend I was automated, 2 goods. So boom, I've got myself 2 goods. Hooray! The cubes go back into the market over here. Let's put this in the camera. So I got myself 2 goods for running that, and let's pretend that I'm just done with that. So now I can sell those goods if I would like to. So I have, what is this? Sewing machines. So this is actually a terrible example, but let's just pretend I put them right here. So I would get $160 for selling these 2 sewing machines because my goods are worth $80. Now, there's going to be tiles here, and this is at the very end of the game where demand is down for all this stuff. But regularly there'd be 3 tiles right here. And if you can be the first person to complete this tile, you're going to get $50 bonus. If you complete the second tile, you're going to get a $20 bonus. So if you can accumulate goods, you can gain yourself a lot of money. So in this particular example, I gained $160. So now I have one more choice, at least in this particular phase, which is the last phase before we get to the cleanup phase. So hooray. Which is, what do I want to do with that $160? I can take it all and put it back into my company, but that lowers my stock prices because my shareholders are not happy because, well, they didn't get paid. Or I can spread that money out. So I could take the $160 and everyone who has 10% of my company is going to get $16, which would mean since I started off with 30% of my company, as I remembered so long ago, that means I would get $48 of my personal money, and then all the shares that I had in the company, so let's say that I had 5 more shares down here, would get $16 a pop as well. So I would get $80 back into my company. I would get $48 into my personal, and then the 2 people that bought 10% of my company are each going to get $16 as well. But the other thing is your stock price bumps up. So in this particular example, because I did terrible, my stock price was at $60. Since I sold, $160 worth, I sold more than double my stock price, which means my stock bumps up 1-2 times, and now my stock price is at $100. So as long as you sell at least your stock price worth of goods and give that out to your people, you're going to go up once. And there's a really handy stock bump guide. You're looking at it now and you're like, what the hell are all these numbers? It's not really useful right now, but it will. You'll have a click moment where it'll be like, oh, this makes complete sense. And then you'll be like, stock bump guide, you're my favorite. Even though if you're good at simple not division, multiplication, you should be able to figure it out. But anywho, that's going to be replenished. I'm not going to go into too much how it works, but needless to say, you can dick people over really hard in this game, and you will do it, because what can happen is, if you set it up right, it can look like, this. And it's just like, I can't get the resources I need. Now, luckily, you can always trade 2 for 1 in this market, but you might not also have the 2 for 1, which is why it's always nice to have some goods left behind so you can sell those goods. But I'm sounding like a crazy madman probably by this point. Anywho, you're going to continue to do this over 5 rounds. At the end of 5 rounds, you're going to see how much money is in your personal treasury. You're going to see how much money all your stocks are worth in your personal treasury. And then you're going to see if you've reached these goals down here. You're going to add up all that money, and whoever has the most money will be the winner of City of the Big Shoulders. And that, in a crazy nutshell, is how you're going to play City of the Big Shoulders. Alright then, City of the Big Shoulder from Parallel. What are my final thoughts? Let's go over the pros, let's go over the cons. Before we do that, I want to give a little caveat. I normally try and play games 3 times before I review them. This one I was only able to play 2 times, once at 2 players and once at 4 players. But I still feel like I have a pretty firm grasp of my opinions on the game, as you're going to see in a second. But first on the con side, 2 to 4 players, restricted player count. I would have loved if this game could have bumped it up to 5. I understand. I don't know how much more table space it would have taken up, but still, it's more of a nitpick than anything. Continuing on with the cons, this game is a beast to learn when you're first learning it. It has a very meaty rule booklet. Now, the rule booklet's well done, but still, it's a 40-page rule booklet, so you do need to know that going in. This is one that you're going to want to have it all set up when everybody gets there as well, because that's going to take you probably about an hour to pop everything out and go through the rules. This is when you're going to want to read the rule booklet in advance and maybe have other people read the rule booklet as well if your game night does that. And if your game night doesn't do that, then I'd highly suggest it for this game, because there is so many different things, and there's so many small aspects that you might miss. Another con that I have with this game is it's going to be really hard to get to the table for some people, but I feel like your second, third, fourth, fifth playthrough are going to be the ones that you enjoy the most. Now, the first playthrough, I'm going to say, was absolutely spectacular. I loved the first playthrough, but there were so many things where I was like, I wish I would have done this differently, or I wish I would have realized how important this is, or how important that is. So that is something to take into consideration. Also, on the con side, I wish they would have just added the advanced game into the game, because I would highly recommend playing with the advanced game. It just gives you the option to pretty much tank your company or take over other people's companies. And they're minor additions to the game overall that I think a lot of people are going to steer clear of on their first game. They're going to be like, oh, let's just not play with the advanced. Let's just do the basic game. And I wish they would have just included it into the game, because I really do think it makes an absolutely outstanding game, as I'm going to tell you, even cooler and better, and it makes you think about one other thing, which is, oh my god, somebody might steal my company from me. It really does give you this sort of unease, which I do like in the game. Any other cons that I have with the game? So one of the spots on the board is a little bit harder to see whether or not it's a manager or a salesperson. It's a minor nitpick. All we did was put salesperson on the board so you could tell a little bit easier, but still, I wish those would have been distinguished a little bit more. I'm really struggling for cons here. Moving on to the pros, City of the Big Shoulder is one of the best games I've ever played. I've played thousands of games, and this is without a doubt a game that's going to be in my collection for the rest of my life. It is just... oh, there's too much to even talk about how much I love this game. I actually brought the little cheat sheet just so I could talk about some of my different phases of the game. So first, I love setting up a company. I loved picking out the company, and the interesting choices immediately start. Do I want to be able to get a capital asset for my company and have like this persistent special ability, or have the option to do that? Do I want to start higher on the prestige track, or do I want to start lower on the prestige track? Or do I want to have a company that's really easy to run? I'm not going to need many workers, or one that's going to have a lot of different spots for automation, or it's going to need a lot of resources. It's going to have high cost, low cost goods, or I have to look at what other people are doing as well, because if two people have already chosen, textile, I think it is, sewing machines, I don't want to get another sewing machine. There's choices immediately right from the gate, and then we get to the stock phase, and this is a really interesting phase as well, where you're going to try and decide, do I want to buy in my own stock? Do I want to invest in myself and believe in myself? And at the same time, that means my company is going to be making less money, because I'm taking that 10% out of my company and giving it to me, which means, when my company pays off, my company's going to be making slightly less money, which handcuffs them a little bit, which is a totally interesting aspect of the game. Like, you want to just run and say, I want to buy as much of my company as I can possibly, but then your company itself is going to make less money when you sell your goods. It's a really interesting aspect. And then you're buying goods from other people. And if you're playing with the advanced rules, which I highly recommend, then you actually have to worry about making sure that you can be getting into that 50% mark, so no one else can take control of your company, which is with the stock phase. Then we get to the building phase, which is another incredibly interesting phase, because it's like, which building do I want to put out? And this I want to say this might have been my favorite phase of the game, but I liked all the phases a lot, except for the cleanup phase. Cleanup phase sucks. But hey, how is a cleanup phase supposed to be good? But the building phase is really interesting, because you have these 3 tiles, and you're like, man, I really like this one, and this one's really good for me, but at the same time, this one's going to generate 40 or 50 bucks. It's probably going to get picked every single turn, so you have to be looking out what actions are already out on the board, so maybe you can kind of undercut somebody else's action, because there's going to be actions that are literally just better than other people's action tiles as you progress through the game, because there's level 1 actions, level 2 actions, and level 3 actions, and it's like, do I want to put out an action that I know is going to be good for me, that I'm going to use, but it's not going to give me much money, or do I want to put out an action maybe that's going to be great for other people, and so they're going to go there, there, and they're going to pay me good money, which means then I can start up new companies, or I can do a variety of different things. It's really interesting, and I love this phase, and it's really cool, and it's fast as well, which is good, because most of the phases... Oh, that's one more con that I need to mention. There is some serious downtime between turns in the operating phase, and you are going to have time to go to the bathroom, especially because how the operating phase works is, if you only have one company and your company has the highest prestige and they go first, then you might have 15-20 minutes where you're just going to be doing nothing except collecting payouts from other people's stocks, which other people can do for you. So there is some downtime between turns in the operating phase. That's one thing that I did want to mention on the cons. It's not a deal breaker, I think, for just about anybody, but still something you need to know. So, continuing on, the building phase, really interesting. Then we get to the action phase, and this is just so... Oh, there's so many choices. It's most of the time it's not like, oh man, you blocked my spot, I really needed to go there. There's different ways to do different things, but you are so handcuffed with the amount of workers you get. And then starting another company sounds like this really cool idea, yeah, I'm gonna have another company so we making more money, yeah, and then you're like, wait, I still have the same number of workers. And I have to spread those workers across both companies now and get goods and workers and, employees, I'm going to call them right now, for both companies. And I have to get automation for this company, and I have to get, I have to make sure I get the goods for this company, and I really want to get a capital asset for this company, and you're just not going to be able to do everything you want, and then it becomes, what do I want to do? And you're secretly hoping oh, please go to my spot so I can get money, and it's just, oh, I love the action phase. And as you progress through the game, there's just more and more and more choices, because you're always adding choices in that building phase, which is really cool. Then you get to the operating phase, which without a doubt is the biggest screw you part of the game, because the person with the highest prestige gets to go first, and they can buy whatever goods they want. And what they could do is they could just, because how it works is there's a $10 slot, a $20 slot, and a $30 slot. And if the $10 slot is empty, all the stuff in the $20 slot, boop, goes in the $10 slot. But if you're cunning, like the guy who beat me the first time, who's a jerk, Adam, you can totally just log jam up the whole thing, and you can look at who's going next, and you can totally screw them over, big time screw them over right from the jump. And this is the kind of thing that some people I think might not like about the game, is that you can get screwed over really hard in the game, in particular during this phase, if you do not plan accordingly. That being said, after I got screwed over, I started to be able to rely on myself more, but it is something you need to know, that you can get really hosed in this game really early, and you can feel like it's going to be really hard to dig yourself out of the hole. I still think you can dig yourself out of the hole depending on when it comes most of the time, but something you need to know. The operating phase, really interesting. I like how you run the companies from left to right, and you have the managers, and you have the sale people, and then you place the stuff on the board as well. So you're going to be placing your goods onto these spots on the board, and when you place them and how you place them, it can be very crucial. And just So that's what I like about the game. There's just every single aspect of this game feels well thought out. And every single aspect of this game, no matter how simplistic it might seem at face value, deep down has an interesting choice that you might not be noticing, or an interesting thing that you're like, oh, wait. And I had that moment 3 or 4 times throughout the game where I was like, oh, wait, I really should be paying more attention to this. Or, oh, so I could have done this instead, because that would, it's just incredibly well designed. City of the Big Shoulders, Raymond Chandler III, just absolutely hats off. It's amazing. It's an amazing game. Wholeheartedly recommend this to anyone who likes 18xx, anyone who likes Euro games, or just anyone who wants to try a spectacular game and doesn't mind sitting down for 3 to 4 hours your first time. Just City of the Big Shoulders, going into my collection. Slap a Bauer's Best Seal in it. I probably should have already mentioned that. I'll just throw it up a little bit earlier. But wow, it is just, wow, it is so good. And yeah, put this on your radar, put it in your collection. You like Euros, you like 18xx, pick it up. There you go, City of the Big Shoulders from Parallel. If you're enjoying what I'm doing, please be sure to click on that subscribe button down below. To support the channel, click on the little Amazon Associates link down below. Buy anything on Amazon, throw us a couple pennies my way. Really does help support the channel. And in the comments below, let me know, when was the last time you were completely blown away by a game that you're like, this game is amazing? I've actually had that pleasure quite a few times recently. A couple of the games that I got from Gen Con got Bauer's Best Seals on it. So this one did, and then the other one that I really, really liked was We're Doomed from Breaking Games. Completely different game. That's a fixed 15-minute game, cooperative game. Excellent game as well. Completely different from this one. But let me know in the comments below, when was the last time you were totally blown away by a game? And as always, thanks for your time, YouTube.